The first time I thought about Black Friday as dangerous, I wasn't thinking about crowds or fistfights over a TV. I was thinking about the shape of a man in a parking lot 2 blocks from the store, standing perfectly still in the gray light before dawn, watching the doors open like he owned the air itself. I walked past him with my headphones in and told myself it was nothing, just another weirdo waiting for a sale. But later that day, when someone I knew posted a photo from inside the store with the exact same shadowy figure reflected in the glass behind them, my throat went cold. It was one thing to see a stranger in person. It was another to find his silhouette copied into pictures where he hadn't been standing. If you love terrifying, true-style horror stories, make sure you like this video and subscribe to Haunted USA Tales. And tell me in the comments where you're watching from, so I can personally thank you. Now, let's continue. My name is Marcus. I work part-time in a diner and part-time in retail logistics, moving pallet stacks and inventory for a chain that does a kind of controlled chaos every November. Over the years, Black Friday stopped being a day and became a season of weird encounters. Lines at 3 in the morning, people who camp out in folding chairs with printed spreadsheets, and a kind of brittle, hungry energy that makes otherwise ordinary people say and do strange things. A year ago, my manager asked me to cover a shift at a newer store on the edge of our city. One built out near an old strip mall and a neighborhood where the lights go dim after 11. I figured it would be the usual grind, roll cages, price tags, and the ritual of shoving TVs into cardboard sleep bags. What I didn't expect was that this store would feel like a seam in the city, where 2 neighborhoods meet and something else can slip through. Over the next 3 Black Fridays, I started paying attention to the eerie little corners of the holiday. Stories whispered in break rooms, texts from coworkers with blurry photos, and late-night rides home when drivers talked about men who sat in empty cars and stared. Each year, I heard one pattern. These incidents weren't about the usual Black Friday desperation. They were small, targeted, and somehow personal. Not everyone experienced them, but the people who did remembered them like they'd touched something alive. At first, I thought those stories were urban legend fodder, seasonal, exaggerated. But then I noticed the same details cropping up. A soft tapping under the storefronts, a smell like burnt sugar and cold metal, phones that played back audio with extra voices layered under the static. People who laughed about it in staff rooms at 2 a.m. stopped laughing once they'd had their own encounter. The way these stories lived in the mouths of the people who told them, half embarrassed, half terrified, made me start writing them down. Over 3 seasons, I collected 3 stories that stuck with me. Different people, different neighborhoods, same weekday, Black Friday, and small, uncanny things that might have been coincidences if they hadn't kept happening. Each one had a moment where a rational explanation seemed possible, and then, when you looked more closely, the explanation shattered and something else remained. A person staring through a frozen glass. A child's voice echo from an empty back room. A rider that shouldn't have been there. Tonight, I want to tell them to you exactly as they told them to me. Story 1. The Reflection Man. It started with Amber, who stacked TVs and wore a beanie pulled down over her ears. She's the kind of cashier who hums old R&B under her breath and knows how to ring up a dozen different coupons without looking. The Tuesday before Black Friday, Amber came into the break room holding a printed photo. She'd been out with a friend who wanted a new microwave. The friend took a selfie by the automatic doors with the mall reflected behind them. Amber pointed to the glass with a trembling finger. "I didn't notice him when we walked in," she said, "but look where he is." In the photo, behind the couple, on the other side of the doors where there should have been a cement walkway and a trash can, something stood. Not clearly, no face, but a tall, narrow absence. Like a person was there, but the camera had refused to take them. People laughed at first. We said it was a trick of light, a reflection of some sign or a tree. The usual. The first real sign it was something else came the night before Black Friday. I was working the audit, making sure all the display units were properly logged, when I heard an employee scream. It was a short, keening sound that cut through the fluorescent hum and was followed by a deep silence. I ran to the entrance and saw Amber standing with her phone in her hand. In the automatic glass doors, she said, there was a figure standing still between the rows of parked cars. She watched him through the glass for a full minute. He didn't move. He didn't breathe. Someone else went to the doors and he was gone. We told Amber to calm down, said she must have been tired. She swore her friend's selfie had the same shape, the same blankness in the spot behind them. I went home shaken, thinking about a man who would stand in reflection, never stepping inside. Maybe a homeless guy sleeping behind the storefronts, maybe a weirdo who liked to watch people enter the mall. Reasonable things. On Black Friday proper, the store flooded with people. People elbowed and smiled and yelled over promotions. TVs flickered. The PA system kept repeating, "An associate will be with you in just a moment." That's when the reflections started to get weird. I was ringing up a man who'd bought 4 headphones when I saw on the wall mirror a shadow that wasn't in our aisle. It was a long shape, as if someone had bloomed out of the glass. The mirror showed it standing at the far end of the store, looking upward like he was watching the ceiling lights. I turned nothing. Later that morning, I felt watched. A customer's kid ran past with a battery-powered toy, and the sound made the crowd break like water. The reflection man was mirrored in the TV screen next to the kid, bigger than any person should look. Thin, shoulders hunched, hands like a silhouette where fingers are all wrong. When I blinked, the screen showed the toy and the aisles only. The man was gone. People called him an optical illusion. But Amber stopped coming to work after that. She said the man's reflection had been in a rainy storefront window on her drive home, 2 hours after she left the mall. She quit, saying something about needing to sleep somewhere far away where glass didn't betray him. The escalation came when a customer posted a video later that evening. A shaky, vertical clip of the parking lot. For a few seconds, everything looked normal. The row of cars, the wet asphalt, the lights. Then a hush, a ripple like a heat wave. And the reflection man appears in the window of a closed shop across the lot. He's there for 2 frames. And then the glass shows the lot again. The comments under the video were a mix of jokes and terrified messages. People tagged Amber, asked if she had seen it. Amber didn't respond. She moved out of state. A week later, I got a link from a coworker. Someone had posted a time-lapse of our store closing on Black Friday night. The lights dim, the last customer scatter, and then, impossibly, reflections stacked into patterns on the glass. In one frame, a dozen doors worth of reflections at once showed the same tall figure over and over, as if he were multiplied by every flat surface. None of the frames showed him stepping into the store. He always remained on the threshold of reflection. I went back to the store that Sunday because curiosity is a small, honest sickness. I walked around the perimeter at dusk. The strip mall across from us had boarded windows. You could see a faint outline inside those boards where someone had spray-painted a message long ago. I thought about asking the security guard about the building's history, if anyone had ever lived or died there, but the guard shrugged and said some things were better left closed up. That shrug felt like the world folding over a secret. 2 nights later, a late delivery truck driver stopped by the back entrance and asked if any associates had seen a man in a black coat lurking near the dumpster. He said the figure moved between reflections, not in the open. The guard told him not to worry. The driver did not sleep well at the truck stop after that. The final escalation was a phone call from Amber. Her voice was distant, and she said she'd seen the figure reflected in the window of the new apartment complex 2 blocks from where she'd moved. He was there at 2 a.m., she told me. He looked like he had my silhouette memorized. She asked if she could come back into town for some reason, and I said yes without thinking. A week later, she was gone again. We found her car parked on an empty side street in a suburb 2 hours away. She'd left no note. The thing about the reflection man is that you never see his face. You notice the absence of a face like you notice a missing tooth in a smile. Cameras will sometimes catch him in slices, a corner of glass, a billboard mirror, but never long enough to learn anything about him. People who've tried to step toward a reflection that holds him always find themselves stopping. Your own image in the glass gets distorted as if the reflection itself is resisting being changed. The glass knows. People whisper that when you look too long, the man learns how you look back. And maybe that is the moment you cease to be unique. Before I leave this first story, there's one last detail. Yesterday, I found a voicemail on my phone from a number I didn't recognize. It was a cracked voice, thin with tears. "He was in my window," the woman said. "I can't find my husband." The recording ended on static and a soft sound like plastic tape being torn off. I deleted it because the world already carried too many recordings of what terror is. But it sat in my chest like a small stone. I still pass the mall sometimes, usually in the evening when the parking lot shivers under the sodium lights. Sometimes, in the reflection of a store window, I think I see the first man, tall and listless, standing between 2 cars. When I blink, he's gone. The footage is there, scattered across phones and alt feeds. It insists on being partial. It refuses to be whole. And maybe that's the worst thing. A thing that exists only in the glass, always watching, never stepping through. First story score, internal strong psychological horror. Leaves you unsettled and uncertain. Move to story 2. Story 2. The doll prank. The second story came from Giselle, who works in a cosmetics kiosk. She's sharp and funny with a laugh that fills a store, the kind of person who remembers birthdays for strangers. Her story began with a prank that should have been childish, something placed in the dressing rooms like a joke, but turned into something that had an odor I can't shake. Giselle said the first incident happened at a small boutique attached to a mall, not far from where we used to clock in. A woman came in dragging a wrinkled paper bag, said she'd been looking for a coat, and then disappeared into the changing room without buying. After a while, Giselle heard a child's giggle through the curtain. She called out to ask if the woman was okay. The curtain rustled, and the woman stepped out with no child on her hip. She laughed, said she must have been imagining things. Then she paid and left. That could have been the end of it. The weirdness began when someone placed a small, old doll on the rack by the changing rooms. It was cheap, a relic look-alike with one glass eye missing, and a faded bow. Someone joked it was from an estate sale. Everyone said it was a prank. We laughed. But later that night, Giselle found the doll sitting on top of the register, right where I usually keep my tips. The camera footage showed the doll appearing on the counter in between frames, like a jump cut you didn't film. The footage wasn't glitchy. Someone had placed it there. But the track from the changing room to the register would have required walking through the store during a busy hour with dozens of eyes on you. No one was seen doing it. The first escalation was the smell. A few nights after the doll's appearance, customers began complaining about a scent that would wash over the front of the store. Scent like old candy and iron, like butterscotch and rust. It would drift through the aisles, and people would wrinkle their noses, browsing more quickly. Giselle would say it felt like someone burning sugar and metal at the same time. I thought of caramel and pennies and the smell of a hot mall on Black Friday when popcorn machines run all night. Things escalated to a point that's hard to explain rationally. One late evening, a woman came in, her coat frayed, hands shaking. She insisted on standing under the dressing room lights and looking at herself for a very long time, like she was searching for something in her reflection. Giselle watched her and noticed the woman's eyes kept flicking to the doll that sat on a shelf like a watchful child. When the woman left, her receipt fluttered to the floor. On it, someone had scrawled a name with a shaky hand, Tess. The name wasn't anyone who worked there. The confronting moment happened on Black Friday itself. With the store packed, Giselle had to fight a crowd of customers to untangle tags and keep makeup counters clean. She felt something brush her shoulder like a tiny hand. She turned, no one. The doll was on her arm, its glass face blank. She'd been wearing long sleeves that day. There was no place the doll could have been tucked without being seen. The plan was to put it in the lost and found for childish pranks. But every time someone walked toward it, their phone buzzed with images of a little girl's face. The phones played the images briefly and then the image scrambled to static. Giselle wanted the doll out of the store. She tried to throw it away that night, bagging it in industrial plastic and putting it in the dumpster behind the mall. The next morning, at opening, the doll sat on the counter, hair matted as if it had been rained on. Someone on the night janitorial team swore he had thrown it away. The trash compactor confirmed that it had been crushed with the other refuse. No explanation. Soon the doll began to appear in places that meant something to the workers. The janitor found it on his mop bucket. The assistant manager found it tucked behind a register drawer with the tip money visible and untouched. A security camera caught it sliding across the tile like it had feet, moving just a little between frames. People started sleeping in their cars in the lot instead of going home, staying in the light, because the doll seemed less likely to show up where lights were brighter. Then a child went missing from a Black Friday event outside the mall. His mother had left him with a cousin for a moment to grab tissues. And when they turned back, he was gone. Not lost, gone. As if evaporated. Security footage showed nothing but a shadow that stretched and then recoiled like an elastic band. The kid's last seconds were a series of smiles caught on camera, laughing at something off-frame. The mall organized search parties, reporters showed up, and the mall escalated cooperation with police. The little boy was found hours later sitting in a doorway 2 miles away, crying but unharmed. He had no words to describe where he'd been except to say he'd been playing behind the curtain with Tess. After that, the doll moved from prank to threat. Workers reported hearing tiny footfalls in the drywall at night. Phones filled with static-tinged voicemails of someone whispering, Tess. The assistant manager who'd once joked about the doll's vintage look packed up and left town without his family, leaving his apartment in a hurry. He told no one why. Giselle started having dreams in which a child sat at the foot of her bed and tapped the sheet rhythmically. She woke with fingerprints like dust on her ankles. The worst part was the way the doll learned people's names. A coworker who'd laughed about the whole thing woke up to find his name written on a lipstick mirror in the stockroom. Letters backwards like someone had written through glass. The writing matched his handwriting exactly, down to the way he slanted his T's. He didn't remember writing it. He quit the next day and kept a baseball bat under his bed for weeks. Climax of story 2. One night, Giselle decided enough was enough. She sealed the doll in a concrete-filled trash can and drove as far as she could, leaving it behind a row of mailboxes at a dump outside the county line. She vowed never to return. 2 days later, the doll was back on the makeup counter, hair splayed, one glass eye reflecting the fluorescent light like a small cold orb. The camera showed nothing. No one saw it move. Someone left the store that night for good. The mall eventually put the doll in a locked evidence locker after the police took it for testing. The report came back empty, no DNA, no fibers beyond the doll's own stuffing. The item was listed and cataloged and returned. When the doll disappeared again months later from the locker, the officer who handled the file turned pale and resigned. Everyone who had touched the doll swore it whispered names like a game. That Black Friday season, the mall never fully reopened the holiday event room. For a long time, the cosmetic kiosk stayed dark, a space that smelled faintly of sugar and rust when you walked past. Second story score, internal strong folkloric horror plus physical object menace. Modern tech elements, camera, voicemails, good for YouTube. Story 3. The empty back seat. The third story came from Jamal, who drives for a rideshare company and drops me off sometimes when the diner closes. He's the kind of man who notices when a passenger forgets a glove or leaves a snack bag in the seat. He's steady, talkative in an easy way, the kind of person who has to tell stories to keep his eyes from closing on long drives. His Black Friday yarn combines the anonymity of late-night rides with something that doesn't belong in a seatbelt. One late Black Friday, Jamal said, he accepted a request from a profile with no picture and a single initial. The GPS took him onto a cut-through that led behind a used furniture store by the interstate, an area with cracked pavement and neighborhoods that smell of frying oil. He pulled into the curb and waited. The back door clicked open like a key turning in the dark. Jamal glanced into the rear view and saw a hood up, a breath fogging just a little against the glass. He greeted the rider the usual line about traffic, and got no reply. He assumed the rider was tired. He started driving. A few minutes in, his phone buzzed with a message, "Don't speak." It was typed in the notes field on the ride request. But Jamal assumed it was one of those jokey things customers add. He ignored it. At an intersection, he glanced back. The seat was empty. He thought maybe the rider had ducked down to the floor for a bag. He slowed the car and turned around, pulling into a diner lot. That's when the passenger door clicked and slammed open like someone had risen up through the leather. No one was there. The app still showed the ride in progress, the map ticking along as if a person sat behind him. Jamal's hands tightened on the wheel so hard his knuckles went white. He ended the trip and the app flagged it with an automatic warning. Rider reported for suspicious activity. The company sent the usual email about safety measures. Then another automated message that said this rider account had been deactivated. Jamal shrugged and chalked it up to a glitch. He told his coworkers the day shift had a laugh at his expense, said he'd been spooked by nothing. But then it happened to a friend. Another driver picked up a passenger who was reflected in his rear view but not actually sitting in the seat. For a full 3 minutes, the GPS showed movement in the neighborhood without a corresponding shape in the car. The drivers started comparing notes like men who had suddenly noticed the same bruise. The rideshare community started whispering, "Check the back seat. Check the seat when a rider's name is a single letter. Don't look too hard at the mirror." Jamal told me he started refusing rides that came from blank profiles. He'd creep slowly to the curb, waiting to see if a person actually emerged. But as demand built on Black Friday nights, the pressure to accept rides built too. The company algorithm rewards drivers who keep low cancellation rates. He began to take certain rides just to avoid deactivation and the slow squeeze of being put out of rotation. One night, he took a ride that started normal enough. A young woman, coat zipped to her chin, voice low. Halfway through the drive, his rearview lit with a reflection of a person sitting in the backseat he'd not noticed before. Jamal's heart banged so hard he thought the steering wheel might jump. He asked the rider if someone else was joining, and she frowned, looking back. The seat was empty. When Jamal stopped the car and turned to peer behind him, the back seat was gone in the light. The upholstery looked smooth and perfect. No impression of a body, no heat. But on the passenger window he could see a pale, smudged handprint that wasn't his. It blinked like condensation and then faded. The escalation deepened as drivers reported electronics acting weird. Doors locking and unlocking on their own during rides. GPS coordinates jumping like a broken compass. And the car's internal cameras catching an extra shape behind the driver that vanished when you rewound the footage frame by frame. Jamal said he found an old blog where someone had written about a ghost passenger during the era of the first rideshare apps. An urban parable about invisible riders who hitch across neighborhoods like bad weather. The confrontation happened one night on a slick, rainy Black Friday stretch. Jamal took a call from a blank profile rider and decided to wait until daylight. He parked under a streetlight, engine idling, and watched the curb. The phone dinged. Someone had gotten in and closed the door. Jamal turned slowly, and for a moment a shadow sat in the back seat like a stain. He remembered every horror movie he'd ever laughed at and tried to keep the laugh in his throat. He flicked on the interior light. For the briefest second, the silhouette looked wrong. Elongated arms, shoulders too narrow. Then the light showed only a folded jacket and a receipt. But his mirror told the truth. On the glass of the back window, someone had traced a line with their fingertip that spelled his name. It was backward, as if written from inside the car. The fingertip strokes were wet and cold on the glass and smelled faintly of sugar and iron, like the doll from the second mall story. Jamal snapped a picture with his phone. The photo rendered his name bright and white like someone had scrawled chalk. He sent it to me with a short message. I'm done driving nights. The pattern of empty seats and phantom riders was no longer sporadic. Over the next month, the rideshare forums filled with accounts of the same behavior. Blank profile requests, doors that clicked shut when no one stood on the sidewalk, and GPS readings that showed movement across the city without a vehicle physically present. Some drivers reported seeing passengers reflected only in the screens of phones on the dash, as if the riders lived in the devices but not in reality. The final, chilling moment came when a driver hit the end of a shift and uploaded footage to a helpful community group asking if anyone else had seen what was on his in-car camera. The clip shows him dropping off a rider late on Black Friday at a high-rise. He backs away, waves, and the passenger steps out and vanishes into the glossy doors like a puddle. The camera footage, when frozen at the final frame, shows the outline of a person evaporating into pixels. The comments on the clip filled with the math of dread. The person's reflection remained for longer than his presence should have. Jamal quit his night shifts and moved to a transport job during the day. He said the city had pockets where light and shadow tangled, and Black Friday seemed like a stitch that pulled them tighter. The drivers I talk to now keep a string of talismans in their consoles, cheap crosses, old coins, small plastic saints. They keep the interior lights on when blank profile rides show up. It helps the mind, though the camera footage still shows things that don't make sense. When I tell these stories in one sitting, there's a pattern that keeps slithering up my spine. The same little sensory notes traced through each account. The smell of burnt sugar and metal, the way reflections betray an extra presence, the backward scrawl of a name on glass, and a tendency for these things to show up where attention is frayed, on Black Friday when people push past fatigue and hunger for stuff. Black Friday concentrates time. The hours collapse, people move in close. And maybe that compresses something that like seams. The reflection man appears in glass. The doll shows up where people think the world is secure. A register, a locker, a lost and found. The phantom rider sits where a human should be. Surfaces, glass, plastic, leather, seem to be where this thing prefers to show itself. It doesn't step into the open world in a full way. It imitates, it borrows, it piggybacks on reflections and recordings, like it only exists halfway through technology and shadow. Each story also shares a behavioral echo. The thing learns how people look at it and then uses that knowledge to copy their voices or handwriting. The doll learned names. Jamal's back window spelled his name in condensation. The reflection man replicates the outlines it finds on the other side of the glass. It's as if the entities are training, learning the gestures of people so they can slip in when we aren't watching. I began to dread Black Fridays in a new way. The day used to mean exhaustion and bad coffee. Now it means the night when surfaces show you something you can't prove and the city's reflection looks back with a face missing. I stopped taking selfies near windows and asked coworkers not to send me anything weird. My friend who runs social for the chain told me to stop posting about it. These narratives draw negative attention and panic people who might try to solve the problem with flashlights. I understand the impulse to fix things, but some seams are better left unstroked, some reflections unblinking. On the third Black Friday since I started collecting these stories, something happened that tied them together in a way I couldn't ignore. A little before dawn, while the store was quiet and the last of the crowds were packed into cars and cinnamon-dusted bags, my phone pinged with a photo from a coworker named Luis. He was a night stalker who liked to joke about everything. The photo was taken in the back aisle, one of those narrow corridors between pallet racks that transform into a canyon when all the lights are off. On the floor, in a pool of light from a single emergency bulb, a set of footprints appeared. One continuous set of prints walking between display boxes. The odd thing was that the prints looked like the tread of a sneaker, except they were made of a black oily residue that didn't reflect the light. It looked like someone had stepped in shadow and walked. Under the photo was a short caption, "Not my shoes." He hadn't posted anything else. Tonight, every reflecting surface in the store glinted emptily. I felt watched. I ducked into the restroom to breathe and I saw my face framed in the mirror with a smear on the glass, right across my cheek like a handprint. But when I wiped it, there was a faint pattern like the outline of someone's jaw. I called Luis and he didn't pick up. 5 minutes later, his phone pinged me a clip. The clip was shot from the security camera feed. It showed Luis stacking boxes and then stopping, as if listening. The camera's timestamp flicked, 5:12 a.m. A figure appears in the doorway of the loading bay. It stands behind the cartons like a reflection you only notice after you're aware. The man or shape doesn't move for 79 seconds. In the feed, the silhouette shifts and in the next frame, it bends toward the camera. The feed warbles, becomes static, then cuts out. When it restarts 3 seconds later, Luis is gone. We called emergency numbers that morning. The manager insisted that Luis had likely gone home early or quit. There was no sign of forced entry. His locker was locked with his keys inside. His car was still in the lot with the headlights on. We combed the aisles and the dumpsters. We called his mom. She sounded hollow and said she'd talk to the police. The police checked the cameras, then requested the footage. The footage they recovered had a black smear where the figure had been and then a faint shimmer of movement like a heat haze. The feed had no sound. No one saw him leave the store, and all of our written logs showed him as present until the cameras blinked. The final, terrible proof was a voicemail on Luis's phone, left at 5:14 a.m. It was short and flat. No breath, just a voice that was neither Luis's nor any person's. "We're learning," it said. "We remember the folds of your face." The voice sounded like a scrape against a tin can, like someone copying a cassette tape. I played the message in the staff room and the room went silent. No one blamed me for walking out. I quit 2 days later. When you stack the incidents, the reflection man, the doll, the phantom rider, and then add the trace of Luis disappearing under camera light, the shape that emerges is ugly and patient. It doesn't want to be seen, but it knows how to use being seen to teach itself. It takes our images, our slight gestures, our names, and folds them into its own vocabulary. It doesn't come in like a thief who steals things to sell. It comes in like a student, copying and practicing until the mimicry gets good enough to fool us. There's a new rumor now in the corridor between the pallets. People joke about it in the staff chat and then delete the messages. They say late on Black Friday. If you stand with your face near a glossy TV and stare long enough, your reflection will blink a fraction later than you do. If you keep watching, it'll mouth a word you haven't heard yet, a name you love or a name you fear. And when you look down, someone will have written it on the glass behind you. I still live in the city, and I still sometimes work retail on occasion because money is thin. But I avoid windows at night, I don't take selfies near glass. And I never let my phone face the room when I sleep. Every Black Friday I get a pang of dread when the first sale banners go up. I think of Luis stacked in a pallet aisle, of children laughing at a doll who remembers their names, of phantom riders whose door clicks shut with no body to match. I think of the reflection man in every window, patient as a predator and as patient as a librarian. If you ever work retail or drive late at night or find yourself near a flickering streetlight, be careful what you look at. Some things learn by watching. Some things fold your name into their mouths and practice it until it sounds like you. And if you see something that appears only in a reflection, don't stare longer than you have to. Believe these 3 stories. Or don't. But next time you wait in a line that snakes around a mall at 4 in the morning, take your eyes off the glass. Don't let your face be a lesson.